Hi, my name is Ciara Galega, and today I would be talking about the disabilities that have impacted my life. And yeah, this is me. I live with invisible disabilities, and they are fibromyalgia and FND. FND is known commonly known as Functional Neurological Disorder, and I have been living with this condition for some years now. It is when it is characterized by neurological symptoms, and if I were to explain it in mere terms, is the lack of communication from the brain to other parts of my body. It does appear or manifests in different forms, such as seizures, tremors, paralysis, um, weakness, and sometimes sleep, and of course, the pain. It is nonstop. As far as I can remember, my life is pretty, wasn't the best, but it was awesome to me. I had independence. I was a free spirit. I loved to drive. I loved to go to the beach, you know, hang out with friends. I loved adventure. I was content and happy before this. There were a lot of things um, I had to change. Uh, where do I begin? Little things such as, you know, combing your own hair, you know, having shower by yourself, um, dressing up, driving, food, making food. Um, I had to find alternative ways, or more so, be dependent on extra help to accomplish little tasks. Um, Things like even carrying bags or water becomes not only exhaustive, everything becomes a hazard, basically. Um, yeah, and also mm, home, shelter. It's you have to adjust, making sure you're accessible and your living environment is accessible, is within reach, is safe. So little things that you enjoy become not so little any anymore, become chores because you don't have the energy to go about simple tasks, just like even waking up in the morning. It's exhausting. Yeah. And people want to know, like, or ask how I do adjust. Do you really adjust with a disability? Um, I don't think so. I would rather say I'm still adjusting. It does take a lifetime because it is something for life. Your life has been impacted. There is no cure for that, and so you have to learn how to manage most of this symptoms or condition, I would say. And so no, I haven't adjusted yet. Sometimes I feel like my old self, like I get to forget my limitations, and yeah, I wake up feeling like I can run, conquer the world. I can sit up for hours, and watch a movie. And sometimes I feel like I can cook like I used to, but no, those things are foreign to me. So adjustment it's a big word, but yeah, still adjusting. We've got time. Living with a grossly misunderstood disability such as fibromyalgia and FND. It's living with those conditions are quite grossly misunderstood, even by the medical professionals. Often not. People such as myself are not heard, and the most painful part sometimes is when you present yourself and early stages it will be like maybe it's all in your head, because who can describe pain? FND in itself, it's a very complex condition. It varies from person to person. And one thing I would have wished was when I was diagnosed and when the doctors or specialists diagnosed me, they would have considered my background, my culture, my mentality, and how it could interplay in me understanding something that is so foreign to me, to who I was as an individual. And the burden for people suffering with FND is judgment, it's bias, and it's the medical gaslighting. And if you add being an African, someone from a multicultural background who has never really understood neurological conditions or the impact or the complexity of this condition, I would have wished that would have been considered in my early on, because I struggled. I was left to grasp on my own. I was isolated. I was lonely because I couldn't relate. I didn't see anyone who looked like me, sounded like me, with similar conditions or even the same, to reach out, to have hope and to understand how to navigate this new normal. So the most challenging aspects of living with an invisible disability is the stigmatization, the villainization, and discrimination that comes with it. And most often because the lack of awareness, or there shouldn't be any excuse as to why people living with any sort of disability are treated in a very unfair manner. And it is very frequent with FND sufferers. Most often when you present yourself to the emergency, people don't know how to quantify pain. I remember when I presented myself multiple times in the ER, and you will have nurses that will come to me, and you will hear statements like, "Oh, you're too young to not be mobilizing." I don't know what disability has got to do with age. Or you hear remarks like, what do you need, a support worker, or what do you need support or help or assistance for? Shocking. That literally starts to play with your mental capacity, and you start asking yourself if that's really the place where you could get help. And most often with that vile nature and culture that presents itself in the hospitals and in emergency areas, most people living with FND would rather take their chances by themselves by presenting into an environment where you're seeking for relief and comfort, and yet you are discriminated upon, you are gaslighted, you're just treated unfairly, and based on someone's lack of understanding of what you're going through. Just because a disability is invisible doesn't make it non-existent. It doesn't make it not real. And so most people, because they can't quantify the pain you are in, the assumption is it often might be self-inflicted, exaggerated, or not even real. And there you are in shambles, your body is literally tearing apart, high fevers, temperatures shooting, and you're just looking for some sort of relief or pain. And because most painkillers or pain relief don't really work, you have to keep looking. You are either assumed to be addicted to pain meds, or you're asking for too much. And it's sad. It's a very disheartening position to be in, where people will look at you in assumption, and because what people would assume you look okay, they'll be like, what do you need a wheelchair for? Or sometimes you might be even laying there and someone will be like, come on, walk or stand up, let me help you. Yeah. And this particular incident will keep on haunting me, where
a pain specialist, a male medical professional, literally took me out of my wheelchair because he assumed I looked okay and I was put in harm's way. And that would have ended up very, very dire to me. And so you are left with this trauma where you don't feel like going even, to the ER, even in as much as you need it. You just don't want to be treated or left 16 hours on a wheelchair where you can barely sit upright for 2 hours. That is basically putting the person living with chronic pain disorder in torture, unattended for 16 hours, in a position that doesn't help your symptoms or your reality.
It was very quick, and I remember feeling very frustrated with the health system for the gaps in treating patients as me. So, yeah, it's a double layer living with a disability, but it is very profound as an African woman living with disabilities, because often our services and treatment are not tailored to you, and that is very detrimental to oneself. So, yeah, with FND, just like every other disability, you do have to accommodate and make a lot of changes as well. And one of those changes was my home. When you living life, you do not live life. You can only prepare for the now. So when you were choosing a home, you weren't choosing a home with the intention of battling disability or chronic illness. And so you're now left in a position where you have to adjust. And my home, it's one of the places that I had called home for a long time, but have to start doing modifications for my wheelchair, ramps, bathroom modifications, even bedroom modifications to assist with your transfers, because as I said earlier, FND varies from person to person. With me is seizures, tremors, chronic pain, lack of sleep, and yeah, and same as fibromyalgia. It never stops. Your body is always in combat. It's like your body is fighting itself. Temperatures, you run high temperatures like you're fighting an infection, and you've got sometimes your speech and worst of all, it's not noticeable, but cognitively, yeah, that's the kicker. You do forget a lot, have gaps in memory, you fighting for words in your mind so you do not get lost in conversation, and you're not able to, your attention span is also very, very minimal. So your reading, your cognitive life, everything changes. Everything, and how you operate, everything changes. You lose your old self, and yeah, and try to get to the new one. Another thing, I think one would say the miss is the sense of privacy. Um, yeah, and having to be dependent on care.
This illness has taken everything from me. It's dehumanized me in every shape and form.